Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. Extremely appreciative of everyone that joined in earlier, on time rather. So thank you so much. We're just going to take a minute or two just to make sure we have everyone in the room, and then we're going to kickstart. In the meantime, for everyone that's here on the call, I would love for you to join us on menti.com on your mobile phones. We're going to be beginning with an interactive session, and you can also scan the QR code on your screen. This is going to really help us set context for the session that we have today with our two experts. So, request you to join in, and we'll begin shortly. I hope everyone's able to join the Menti. Perfect. I see a few thumbs up coming up. Brilliant. We're going to wait for a few more people to join in. But just for the interest of time, let's begin with today's session. Thank you so much once again for taking out the time to come in for the second edition of our Founder Framework Masterclass series that's run by IIM Bangalore's NSRCEL and WeWork Labs. We're really excited about today's masterclass because today's topic is something that every founder grapples with at some point in time: how to stay capital efficient while continuing to grow fast. And today we have some of the sharpest minds in the ecosystem here today with us. I want to start off with a little bit about why we're doing this, and why we'd like to have a room full of founders, sort of breaking down some key parts about the founder journey. At WeWork Labs, we are the investment and the acceleration arm of WeWork India, where we help startups to use WeWork as an accelerated or an additional team to either acquire customers, to help them find the next talent, help them find investment opportunities, connect them with mentors across the country to help them break barriers in their founder journey, subsidize spaces, and much more. But one of the things that we really want to focus on is helping founders build strong foundations while they're building their businesses, whether for the first time or whether it's a third startup that you're working on. So that's why we're combining knowledge, and I would say decades worth of knowledge with practical experience through these masterclass series, where we bring professors who have dedicated decades of their lives to teach and educate and train minds of tomorrow to build, along with functional experts like we have today. So I'm going to share the stage with Samita to share a bit about NSRCL and why we're really doing this masterclass series.
Yes, thank you, Mohini, and welcome everybody. I'm so glad you're taking out the time to join us today. This is the second episode we're doing of the Founder Framework, and we're so excited to have you all with us. The entire, I think, even when we were first, talking to Mohini and her team, the entire intent behind doing something like this is no matter what our communities are able to offer, we realize founders always benefit from some good conversations, and we realize the best places to have those conversations are at problems that are agnostic to stage. Because within our communities, we realize even within NSRCEL, we run about 14 different programs that address different stages. Even within the WeWork community, there's a good diversity of founders across different stages. So given all of this, we realized we needed to come up with a safe space where founders could learn and learn topics that are relevant to them at different stages of their founder journey. And that's how the masterclass series was born. And every month we try and tackle a topic that we think you founders will find relevant. And we bring in an academician's perspective, and we bring in a practicing industry expert's perspective as well, to help sort of challenge both norms and bring a nice status quo to the advice they're giving. giving you. So that's essentially what we're trying to do with the masterclass series. And like I said, this is episode 2. We have a few episodes lined up for the rest of the year. So on Luma, if you get invites from us again, do attend. We'd love to see you on the next couple of sessions as well. And for today's masterclass, we Mohini has prepared a Mentimeter that's going to help set context for the session. So we should probably get started with that, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Samita. As you can see, we're both really excited to bring this to the founder. I think both of us spend most of our days speaking to founders. So it feels really nice to have a room full of founders and experts who really break down one topic. So let's dive in. I hope all of you have joined in Mentimeter. If not, you can join in the middle of it as well. But I'd like to really start off with an interactive session. Through the questions on the feedback on the registration form, we really understood where you would like to be with capital efficiency as a topic. But before we start the fireside chat, I'd actually really like to know where we stand today. So it's an interactive session where we'd like to understand a little bit better about where you are today, and that will really set context for how the conversation is going to have. All of these are anonymous, so we hope to see honest answers and responses so we can craft that conversation together. Yeah, let's begin. The first one you'd see on your mobile phones right now is asking you to define what capital efficiency mean to you in one word. You can put in any question, any word that ROI seems very apt. Frugality, definitely. Profits, absolutely. Survival, I think that's very, very critical. And I think we're going to touch upon that as well. Burn less, amazing. I love it. Brilliant. Those, I think ROI definitely seems like the popular choice. Amazing. I'm going to give a few more seconds for everyone else to respond as well, to let us know what you think capital efficiency is. I'm loving the answer freedom and also a specific number. We'd love to know how that number came about. A lean startup. Brilliant, brilliant. I think all of you understand the concept amazingly well. This is all the topics that we're going to cover and sort of dive deep into in the conversations as well. I'm going to head to the next question now. What we'd like to know is where's the room at? We've got almost about 100 people on the call here today. We would like to know, where are you in the founder journey? Have you raised capital already? Are you still validating the idea? Yeah, most of our audience is bootstrapped. That's amazing. I think we should start early while being capital efficient. Brilliant. Amazing. That's fairly early stage founder community we've got today, Rakesh and Professor. I think the conversation is going to be completely resonating with most of the audience here. Lots of questions, and we have actually parked a section for one about fundraising, about how to deal with investors. So it's definitely going to help all of us. Brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to head to the next question and understand we're going to try and infuse some terminologies here on things when we speak about capital efficiency. How much runway do you currently have? And of course, this needs to be an approximate. These are anonymous answers, so be as honest. We're just trying to see where we are today. Thank you to the 18% of the audience that's actually being really honest with us. I really appreciate it. Amazing. Okay, that's a diverse mix that we've got. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. The next question I'd like for you to think about is, how confident are you in managing your monthly cash burn? You can rate it from 0 to 10. How confident are you today? We've got a great room in the great audience set in the mix. I think most of us are fairly confident in our monthly cash burn, and I'm really happy to see that. We've got an average of about 6.4 out of 10. I'm hoping that we take that to about an 8 or closer to the 10 today's conversation. Brilliant. Thank you so much. This is a word cloud, and I'd like for you to think about one financial decision you regret or fear of messing up. This could be anything with your pricing models. It could be about deciding how much money to spend in ads. It could be about hiring. It could be about anything that you think you are worried about spending on. Okay. Hiring definitely seems like a key decision to think about. Absolutely. Amazing. Pricing model seems, yeah, that's fairly accurate. Marketing. So if I'm seeing the trends, it's about people, it's about social media, it's about marketing, how much to spend on your product, your website. Investments too much. That's a good problem. Very interesting. Interesting. I think we're sort of getting a few trends about what the room is talking about and what we'd really like to see, how to really decide where to spend and not have many regrets in the journey of building a startup. Amazing. Thank you so much. This is extremely, extremely helpful. I'm going to throw this question back to you. So if you were to, what would you first cut if you had to extend your runway by 3 months? These are, of course, only tentative. You may or may not, depends on whether you're going to take this as an opportunity within these 4 options that we have. But just trying to see how the room thinks about extending runways. Founders stop taking salary. Okay. I love the emphasis on a key hire. I think people are definitely a key part of the startup journey and the success. Brilliant. Awesome. Definitely amazing. You guys are definitely on the right path. Coming down to what you think in the journey of being capital efficient, what do you think is the biggest blind spot right now in managing money? Interesting. Valuation of a startup, unit economics seem to be the 2 options that we're thinking about. Burn planning, absolutely. Lots of us talking about CAC, LTV, pricing our products. Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. By the way, these are all, we're going to try and cover all of these and sort of uncover some of the secrets that we have from our 2 experts today to try and answer some of these questions about how to manage, all these segments that we're talking about right now. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Something that we want to see what your threshold is about capital efficiency. What is your internal threshold to saying this channel is ineffective? How do you decide something is not worth it? Okay. Makes sense. Amazing. Brilliant. Yeah, those are absolutely the right ones to think about. All 4 are right. Just understanding what the threshold is. Amazing. What's one metric you wish you understood better so that, our speakers have an idea about what you'd like to cover more? So it could be how to understand burn multiple. What do you mean by CAG, MRR? These are all words that we talk about when capital efficiency is in conversation. Brilliant. Okay. Awesome. Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Amazing answers, everyone. I think, yeah, for sure. Some of these are very complex, to break down, and I hope that the conversation today does that for all of us. Brilliant. How would you describe your startup's current financial culture? Would you consider frugal, reactive? Are you more disciplined? Are we opportunistic with our capital efficiency? Is it more intuition-led? Well, this definitely correlates with the early stage founder community who are bootstrapped. Frugal definitely seems like the right way to manage money today. Amazing. Amazing. What's one spending decision that keeps you up at night? Something that you're currently thinking about. Could be salaries, it could be tools to infuse, it could be expansion. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. International expansion, that's amazing. Love it. We've got Rakesh here today. He's definitely had a lot of experience in expanding businesses globally. I'm sure we are able to break down some of that learnings today to see how to still be capital efficient while we expand markets, marketing, hiring. Amazing. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Last one, but not the least, what's one area of spend that feels invisible but adds up fast for you? Okay. Discounts. Okay. Freebies, definitely. Salaries, discounts, rent. Yeah. Fuel, interesting. Operational expenses. Perfect. Thank you so much. You definitely are thinking about how to optimize costs. And I think that's absolutely necessary for success. Amazing. Brilliant. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Last question. This is the last one, to be honest. What's one expense you're afraid to cut? You're not afraid. Oh, this question meant not afraid to cut. I think I'm going to skip this question just for now. But thank you, everyone, for participating. I think that gave us a lot of context to who's in the room. And I think all of the things that we spoke about, marketing expenses, salaries, how do we understand whether a decision is worth taking the risk for? And that really sets the context for our next segment that we have. We've got a fireside chat with Professor Sabarinathan, Finance and Accounting area at IIM Bangalore, and Rakesh Thakur, the Group CFO of both. I'm generally excited to introduce someone really special to us in the startup world, Professor Sabarinathan. He spent the last 23 years at IIM Bangalore, shaping how we really think about venture capital, corporate finance, startup funding. But his real edge is that he's lived the world long before he even started teaching it. He's played pivotal roles in setting up India's very first VC fund, back when startups probably weren't even called startups, and then went on to lead private equity arms of giants like ICICI, GE, and more. His journey, his journey spans across boardrooms, across government committees, classrooms, and conversations with hundreds of founders. And every time you speak with him, he brings a mix of clarity, deep insight, and a rare ability to zoom out and make you see the bigger picture while staying incredibly grounded. Thank you so much, Professor Sabri, for joining us today and leading the fireside chat. We're incredibly elated to have you with us today.
Thank you. Moini, are you going to introduce Rakesh or should I say something before that?
I can introduce Rakesh and then I can share the mic with you.
What I want to say is that I'm glad I'm not going to have to share wisdom because all the things that you said, I would have come across as seriously disappointing if I had to share wisdom. So Rakesh is going to have to carry that burden.
Thank you, Professor. But I'm sure that we're going to have like a lot of learnings from you as well, and I hope we bring that out. Joining Professor today is someone who's seen business from every angle, from a billion-dollar boardroom to fast-moving factory floors. Rakesh Thakur is the group CFO at Boat. And I'm sure everyone in this room has experienced their journey of how they've refined Indian brand play in the big leagues. At Boat, he's helping the business shape strategy and scale it both with precision and with heart. But before Boat, Rakesh spent over 2 decades with some of the biggest names in the world: Unilever, GSK, PepsiCo, Samsung, and more, where he led everything from P&L to supply chain to mergers to restructuring and business transformation across South Asia. Like many of you were looking out for more learnings on market expansion, he's handled multi-country operations, built finance teams from ground up. And it really makes it special because for the room full of founders that we have today, he really gets both speed and structure. And you know how to balance burn with growth and what it takes to scale smart and how finance can be an enabler, but not just a gatekeeper. He's extremely hands-on and extremely insightful, at least in all the conversations I've had. And we're truly excited to have you, Rakesh. And thank you so much for taking our time today to lead the masterclass for our founders.
Thanks, Moini, for such a fantastic introduction. Thank you so much.
With that, I would like to hand over the mic to Professor and Rakesh to lead the conversation and open the floor on how do we understand capital efficiency.
Thank you, Mohini. Thank you, Samhita. I've been a silent witness to everything that's going on there. Rakesh, good to be on this program with you. For the benefit of those who logged in, initially Samhita approached me with a request to, make a presentation first and then have Rakesh share his insights. So it's sort of a masterclass sort of format. And then I requested Samhita and through her Mohini that we change things around a bit. And that request came essentially from my experience in running NSRCEL, which is IIMB's incubation center. I did that for 4 years, till some years ago. And so every month we would have 2 to 4 events, practically one every Saturday. And I would be there in many of those events. And panel discussions, typically we would have entrepreneurs, we would have founders, we would have investors and so on. And I noticed something very interesting. Whenever we had an academician in the panel, the questions would always flow to the founders and the investors. And initially, as a teacher, I did honestly feel a bit left out. I said, what the hell is going on? I mean, here I am, I think I know a lot, and none of the questions is coming to me. And then I realized that there's a reason why the flow of questions happen in that manner. People really wanted to learn from who are out there in the trenches doing things than somebody who teaches in a classroom. And so with the benefit of that experience, I said to Samhita and through her to Mohini that maybe we should turn this out. I mean, we should turn it around into a session where Rakesh does most of the talking. It also makes my life a little easier. It's a lot easier to ask questions than to answer them. And so here we are. So the format that I intend to follow is that we have 45 minutes roughly, I believe, for Rakesh and I to have a conversation. And then after that, Mohini has assembled a set of questions that you probably got from the participants. So I've done what I'm good at, which is to make notes from that. And I've put down a few that appeared more important, more relevant to ask someone like Rakesh with the kind of experience he has. So I just want to make one more observation before I fire off my first question to Rakesh, which is that typically in all these years that I've been engaged with the startup ecosystem, you're invariably asked to do panels, do presentations on how to raise capital, how to find investors, how to do valuation, and so on. And one thing that used to intrigue me as a former investor and now an academic is here is a situation where people are burning money away like there will be no sunrise tomorrow. And nobody seems to give a damn about that. I mean, the amount of capital that was getting consumed used to really surprise me. And so when Samhita brought this topic to me, I was very pleasantly surprised because I was happy to see that finally we are beginning to talk about capital efficiency, being basically in simple English, being careful about the money we raise, the way we spend it, and the way we plan to spend even before we raise money. So the care or attention starts from there in terms of the way we apply our minds to asking basic questions: do we really need to spend this money? And if we do, how do we fund it? So quite happy to see that we are finally recognizing this, the importance of this topic. Mohini quite possibly told you this. We can't have a better person than Rakesh to talk about this because, if you've been observing Boat's journey, it's been a journey of tightening the belt, as it were, without compromising on performance. And that's a very difficult balance. And as CFO of Boat, I'm sure Rakesh has had his more than fair share of contribution to make in that in making that happen. So there's nothing like hearing it from the person who is actually doing it on the ground. Making capital allocation more efficient. That's what this talk is all about. So Rakesh, I'm going to stop here and ask you the first question. Would you like to start by taking the participants quickly through the board journey? So that sort of sets the context for talking more about the capital efficiency decisions you took.
Thank you so much, Professor, and it's an honor to have this fireside chat with you. And of course, good to see that more than 100 people have joined, and and kudos to Moini and Samita to organize such a great event. I think let me first tell you that how I started my career. Largely, like Mohini mentioned, almost 2 decades of experience in Pepsi, Samsung, GSK, and Unilever. And throughout that, you know, those 20 odd years, what we could, or let's say what we had learned was that how do we work on others' money, right? Because we used to operate on negative working capital, right? So when I came to board and I could see that we had tons of crores of debt or working capital loans, right, to fund the working capital. So for me, it wasn't something which I could easily digest, right? And I was very very clear this is where I need to start my work. And what is let's say in very simple terms, when you join finance, let's say there are three. You are always let's say you always talk about financial growth model, right? What is that financial growth model? I think largely three parts to it. It should have a volume growth, good margins and profit, and last but not the least, the capital velocity, which is nothing but capital efficiency. I think if we are kind of ticking in on these three, metrics, you will generally see most of the organization which has been there for ages doing pretty well and sustaining the profitable growth. I think that's what that's our learning for last many years. Coming back to boat, when I started my journey in the boat, I think sometime in September 2023, and I look at the balance sheet. That time we had close to, or somewhere around 800 crore of working capital debt, and roughly 1,000 crore of working capital. And the task was, how do we make it more capital efficient, right? I'll not get into too much of detail. That of course, feel free to ask questions. But as we close the year, in FY25, FY24, if we were, let's say, at X revenue with a 2-3% growth in FY25, which is almost flat, how do we reduce? What we did was we reduced the working capital from almost 2x to 1x, right? Or in a way, 700 crore was FY24, we reached to 350 crore. So how do we run the similar, or let's say, how do we generate revenue with a half of the working capital is something we could, turn around in 1 year's time, and that's the journey. Feel free to ask questions, and I can speak more about it. How did we, let's say, reduce the inventory levels? How did we go back and ask for the better payment terms from the suppliers, in terms of be it Chinese suppliers, be it our service providers? How did we get our collections also, you know, discounted with the bank? Because cash is very, very important to have. If you have, even if it costs you some money in terms of interest, having a cash in bank is very, very important. And of course, we can, as we, move along, I'll keep touching upon, this entire last 1 year, 1.5 year turnaround.
So, Rakesh, can I ask you a couple of questions? One is, and they're related in some ways. So one is that I suspect that a good number of the people who logged into this program don't come from a manufacturing background.
Yeah.
So the board story perhaps is, in that sense, a lot more educated, because your working capital story, being a manufacturing organization, I'm sure is a lot more complex than, let's say, that of a SaaS company that's delivering some software solution, right? So very quickly, if you can take the audience through the different components of working capital and what is it that makes it challenging for you. The second related question is, why did it occur to you or to the leadership at board that your working capital needs tightening? I mean, what particular metric or measure did you look at that made you think we need to cut our working capital by half, which is what you said you did in the last 1 year?
I think let me attempt the second question first. I think then, see, when I came in, like I said that our debt levels were as high as 800 crore, and I think the first target was how do we, one is of course the lighten the balance sheet and to start with the debt. And one of the key reasons for those working capital debt was the high levels of working capital, right? And they were multiple reasons. Are we Were we collecting the money on time? Answer was yes. Could we collect it faster? That answer we had to figure out, right? Like I said that, could we go to the bank, or let's say, the our customers like Flipkart and Amazon were also offering the bill discounting. Let's say if I have to get that money in 60 days, I can get that money in 5 days or 10 days if I'll pay them 8 or 9% or 10% of the interest, right? That's one part of it. The second is, uh, you know, most of our peers, right, and in the electronic industry, you generally operate at a payment terms of, let's say, 90 days, 120 days. We were operating at 30 days or either advance. Why don't we go and ask questions? Why don't we go and, uh, you know, ask for better payment terms? But because what they are going to get, all those ODM suppliers, the Chinese suppliers, are the big chunk of volumes in India, because we roughly sell 3 to 4 crore units every month, which is a large volume when it comes to getting those kind of payment terms. So I mean, and the reason was the debt. We were staring at 7 to 800 crore, and the reason for this debt was nothing but working capital. So for me, the task was cut out, that how do I reduce that working capital. And like I said, when I came in, it was close to 1,000 crore, and across working capital levers, which is inventory, trade receivables, suppliers, and trade payables, is something which we had to bring down and reduce it to almost, from those levels, almost one third, because at that time it was close to 1,100 crore. By the time we closed the year, it was 700 crore, but When I came in, it was 1,100 crore. I think, and it's all about setting up those governance, for the supply chain team, right? I tell you, the inventory was as high as 700 to 800 crore, right? What we were doing, we were placing the order for next 6 months. We had no visibility on the demand for next 6 months, but we were trying to ensure the supply for next 6 months. I mean, there's a huge mismatch. You don't know how the market is going to behave, let's say for next 6 months, but you're ordering for those material well advanced in 6 months. And that's exactly our variable industry, wherein our pricing, which is average selling price, right, which is smart watches, their price table crashed significantly, right? And then or those priced once the price table crashes, right, you can't sell those products at a very high selling price, and hence you have to offer the discount, and then you end up getting into losses inventory because inventories pile up. So I think it's a vicious cycle we went through, especially in our smartwatches, scale up, which we I think we for 2 years we went through that tough phase of wearable business, and then it wasn't easy to recover. And like I said, that setting up those governance, not allowing, let's say, the inventory order for next 6 months, but next say for let's say for next 2 months, it is absolutely good to go, because the visibility of the demand is only for next 2 months, right? Because my customer says that for next 2 months, this is what I need, these are the SKUs I need, right? Based on that, we used to set up, or let's say we used to place an order for those supplies. I'm seeing those small tweaks, strong governance, ensuring that governance is in place, and every month, every day, we are reviewing those, inventory cycles, and it took us good 12, 13 months to, bring back, let's say, from almost 90 days inventory levels to 30 days inventory level.
So do you follow what, a multi-channel strategy or an omni-channel strategy?
Yes, I think we have both online and offline and our own website,
Okay.
business. Largely, it's online D2C led business, but offline of late is as high as close to 27-28%.
So that must be making a challenge all the more complex, right? Because you'll have different collection experiences across these different channels.
Exactly. See, with big customers like Flipkart, Amazon, you can still go and, like I said, that agree for those bill discounting. But how do you do it? Let's say with smaller distributors, and this is where, what I did for last 6 months is I activated some of the channel financing, with those smaller distributors. Those distributors, our business is as big as 4,000 crore in gross revenue terms, so roughly 800 to 900 crore is our offline business. Within that, 400, 500 crore is general trade, which is small 100 distributors managing that 400 crore. And, picking those top 20 distributors, which contribute 60% of the business, telling them, we are going to, based on our working capital line, because now our working capital debt is repaid, right? But our lines are still existing. How do I best utilize those lines to finance, or let's say give a channel finance to my smaller distributor? Because if they are going to go on their lines, they are going to pay 14%, 15%. We can use our line, which is 8%, 9%, and then help them, pay us faster. So again, that also played us, that also played very, very well. And as we speak, I think 50% of our general trade distributor are on channel financing, and we are getting our money within 5 days of the goods received, the POD we receive, or let's say proof of delivery, we get it from the distributor. So from 30 days to 5 days, and from those 60 days again to 5-7 days. That's how we were. Yeah.
On the other side, on the inventory side, I'm sure one of the challenges you continue to face is the large number of SKUs that you need to manage, right? Because you're at the end of the day a consumer product company, and in an industry where fashion evolves rapidly, trends evolve rapidly, SKUs must be quite a challenge for you. So, did you have to tackle that, and how did you go about tackling that part of the challenge?
See, I think it's a very old FMCG way of classifying your SKUs, which is, classify them either one is BAU, the other is NPI, which is new product, new innovations. One is business as usual products. Within that BAU, you have A plus, or let's say A class SKUs, B class, C class. For A class SKUs, you don't need to, which is your running SKUs, right? Which is almost, always in demand, right? You don't need to keep 50 days or 40 days of inventory.
Those are your fast-moving items.
Exactly. I think those are fast moving. You can keep 10 days of inventory, and you can replenish it very, very fast. Uh, Similarly, for C, wherein the demand is slow and the supply is also, uh, is challenging because of the MOQ size, which is minimum order quantity. You need to keep at least 45 days kind of inventory. So that's how you balance it. But A plus, or let's say A, contribute almost 60% of your business, right? And you need not keep high level of inventory. And there are multiple arrangements you can do with vendors, suppliers, uh, you know, on these A plus A class SKUs, because you can ask them to keep raw material, and then whenever there is a demand, they can supply us as quickly as possible.
So it's not just a simple task of managing the SKU inventory level. It looks like a whole supply chain optimization, as it were, on the inventory side.
Exactly, exactly. I think we have so our supply chain ecosystem starts from China.
Okay.
This is where we got the completely knocked down kits, because now we are manufacturing in India, right? But raw material, which is at least 30-40% raw material, still comes from China. We have started manufacturing PCB, which is a circuit board which we use for our electronic products. We have started, and our conversion packaging is still in India. We are also getting a battery manufacturing, so it's entirely backward integrated, right? That's how we are planning. We are also we go meet the chipset manufacturer in China, ask them to supply in India separately. We go and meet a plastic guy, ask them to supply directly in India, and that's how we have kind of integrated it backwardly, and that's really kind of gives us good leverage in terms of cost, our payment terms, better quality, and our say in a faster turnaround in terms of product innovation, because we know which chipset we need to get, we know what changes we need to get it, and that kind of ecosystem we have been able to build over a period of last 4 5 years is really paying us dividends in terms of faster supplies, better payment terms, good quality, and that backward integration, it was a game changer for us in the last 2 years.
That sounds pretty complex, Rakesh. I mean, it looks like it's a way lot simpler to run a software solutions company. I mean, it has its complexities, but you are dealing with a completely different set of complexities, as I can see. But well, yeah, thanks for taking us through that. One of the things we teach in the classroom, and I can't resist the temptation to ask you this question. So we say that working capital management is always balancing trade-offs. So if you optimize on inventory, there's a risk of stockouts. If you optimize on the collection policy, you want to collect faster, then your customers are less likely to lift more from you. Um, does it actually ever play out in that manner in your experience?
It does, and this is where you know like I said, that now we are in that position of maintaining our working capital at 35-36 days, and which is really helping us to have some dry powder. And this is where you know, to invest behind the business. Let's say what happens after season, which is after Diwali, right? Because till Diwali is a season for electronics market. Post that, the distributor doesn't get that scale, right? Their fixed cost is also there, and therefore, getting the money from the retailers, right, is not easy after festive, right? And this is when we extend those credit days to that, 15 days. Let's say if you are operating in 35, we extend it to 50 days post festive season, right? Because we know that during festive season we can easily get that money, because there is a sellout happening in the retail shop. We will get that money, we'll get our money faster. But this is the time, and that's a typical season off season dynamics which always play. I can give you an example of Pepsi, which was, when I was in beverages, April to June was our peak season, right? 70% of the sale will happen in those 3 months. If you miss that season, uh, you know the entire ecosystem will collapse. And post that, let's say especially during October to January, which is winter season in north part of India, right, and in central part of India, this is where you have to go and support your distributor. In those hard time, you have to make sure that they earn ROI on their investments, either through because you can't offer the higher margins, but you can do, because you have a better working capital situation, you can extend that credit days for them, so that they can pay you 15 days later once they get it back from the retail markets.
Let me switch gear a little bit. There's a question I wanted to ask you. It's also come from somebody in the audience. So the question is, how do you actually forecast demand and requirement of cash for something as complex as your working capital cycle? Large number of SKUs, omni-channel, multi-channel distribution strategy, different collection policies, different kinds of inventory. Is it a very complex system you have?
It's I think we review a weekly cash flow on in a simple Excel,
Okay.
right? And it's not a very complex simulation we do to forecast our cash for next week. The way we operate, and I'll come to the forecasting part later, which is how do I forecast my demand.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, because for, if you ask me, I think what is more important is cash versus anything else, right? And how do I ensure during those lean period, when I don't have when festive season is not there, it's off season, how do I get the cash collected on time, and how do I pay my supplier on time? And it's a very simple Excel wherein we uh, let's say in 10 rows estimate that how much money I'll get from Flipkart, because this is going to be due in next week. How much money is going to be due from Flipkart? How much from Amazon? How much from, let's say, Zepto of the world, Swiggy of the world, and the offline business, which is general trade and modern trade. That gives us good weekly cash projections. And then what we do, what all payments I'm going to do, which is going to be due. Let's say, thankfully, we have SAP, which really helps us understand the payment terms better, that which is going to be due, which is not going to be due. Based on that, let's say how much domestic suppliers payment, how much duty payment, how much payment to, let's say, the Chinese suppliers, how much payment for the GST, how much payment for my, let's say, salary, if your salary needs to be paid, how much payment for the marketing agency. All these payments we kind of calculate and make a clear case of that how much cash flow is going to be there after the weekend, right? Let's say after a week is finished. That's how we, let's say, if we have a balance of 100 crore in the week beginning, is this 100 crore remaining intact, or it's going to reduce? That's how we review it almost on a weekly basis in a very simple Excel. When it comes to demand forecasting, and that's uh, it's not as typical as 40-year-old, 50-year-old FMCG, because they have last 10 years data, 15 years data. Most of the startups, and very similar to boat as well, which is though 10 years old into uh, you know into their business, but I think the systems processes came in last 4 years, right? Hence the data availability is only for last 4 years. And when I came, the data wasn't there for even for last 2 years. So we have to work very, very hard. So in that case, I think what's critical is that for next 2 months, how do I predict for next 2 months better? Because that for me, that's very, very important. And there is no baseline for that. So what I do, I go to Flipkart, I go to Amazon, right? I look at the trend of our general trade and modern trade, right? Because my 50% of my business is still online, more than that. We have, we also have our own website, right? So we know that 5% of the business. So 60-70% I know where the demand is going to come in. But balance 30%, we have to have a good understanding. And with distributors, we also know that their secondary sellout is there. And once, let's say, our customers confirm this is what they are going to buy from us for next 2 months, first month has to be firm. The second month can still be 90 80 90% accurate, right? And they will confirm that a sale only with certain spends agreed with them. Yeah, because you will say okay, they will say okay, we are going to buy 60 crore from you next month and 50 crore a month later, but you will have to spend, let's say, 15% on discount, 5% on marketing support. That's how the PNL with them will work, right? Once that's closed, right, and this starts in the month beginning. Once, let's say, we are sitting in the month of June, this conversation would have happened in the first week of June. Once this conversation happens, I think then it goes to sales teams validate. Let's say they will also look at their previous record, ensure that every time they commit, let's say 60 crore, but they end up serving the PO of only 50-55 crore. So they will do one level of calibration. They submit it to the demand forecasting, a demand planning guy. He will take those numbers, run this simulation for last 12 months, last 24 months,
Okay.
if the data is there. Because for new innovation, the data might not be there. But for the, because our, like I said, that thankfully for us, at least last 24 months data is there. They will run that simulation and come up with a baseline number.
Okay.
On that baseline number, they will look at how much promotion, how much marketing spend, how much additional discounting is going to be run. And then a forecast for first month, which is going to be firm, and second month, which is 80-90% correct, is arrived. Based on these 2 months, then we place our order, for supplies and ensure that this happens.
Okay, thanks a lot. I mean, that's really a very, very detailed and insightful explanation of what you guys do. Clearly, I don't envy your job. To be honest with you, it's pretty challenging. Let me switch gear a little bit. We have another 10, 12 minutes before we turn the floor over to the participants' questions. So investors, as I understand, are used to funding businesses that are not manufacturing intensive and definitely not as working capital intensive as yours. How did you guys persuade investors to put money on this business?
So I think what investor look for is definitely the industry you are operating at, and what is the future of that industry. And when our investors came in, I think this audio space, smartwatch space, was expected to be literally, uh, you know, $4 to $5 billion in next 5 years. So I'm talking about 2020, 2021, when Warburg, our PE investor, came in. Before that, I think Samir and Aman had not taken any, they had not raised any funds. And that was, and first round of money was largely to support the growth in smartwatches, right? Because that was the next set of growth lever which we, or let's say, they could see. uh, the second was, uh, you know like I said, the second tranche of investment, or let's say fundraise, happened because of our inefficiencies,
Okay.
right? And I'll be very transparent on this, because we were not able to anticipate the demand of wearables, which is smartwatches. We thought that that industry is going to grow, 100%, 200%, because the penetration, when we looked at the penetration of China and America, they had literally at the penetration of 25%, 30% to smartphone, and India was only 3 to 4%.
But to be fair, Rakesh, you did have a period of robust growth even there. It's not like it never grew. It's just that after a while it kind of tapered off, didn't it?
Yes, and so like I said that, and in the because we wanted to scale up that business very fast, we wanted to raise funds for that scale up, and for that scale up, and for going for, and we literally went behind, the market share, because that was a new industry, because we were already a market leader in audio. We were, in terms of volumes, we were at 45 50%, you know we were holding 45 to 50% market share, and we also aspired for similar market share in wearables and smartwatches as well, and we wanted to scale up fast, because we could see that, in 3 years term, in 3 years period, this business will be as big as audio, and we wanted to, you know get our share. This is where, like I said, we could not anticipate the demand, and we grew for we made this business to 1,000 crore in 2 years time, but that was not sustainable, right?
Okay.
And this is where we kind of, to make it, let's say, 1,500 crore, or let's say to 2,000 crore, we had to raise some funds, and that's where, the industry started, once it reached to 15% of penetration. This is where, a lot of excess supply situation in China coming in, right, kind of reduce the COGS price, or let's say cost price, significantly. Many other players, Chinese players, local Indian players, also without any brand names, started, getting that pie in that market, which kind of crashed the, selling price for that category, and which we, and we went through that tough phase of 2 years. Now it's absolutely uh, back to, I won't say back to its glory, but back to a very reasonable, decent selling price, and also growing variable markets now, which is where we see that now people have understood that it's not going to be only a lifestyle watch. It should be based on some health features. Let's say we are also launching, one of the products which will, which based on that we can track our kids with GPS tracking. All those things are being, added to those, are our smartwatches. So it's completely going to be feature based smartwatches, which is, and at this time, the consumer is ready to pay for a higher selling price.
So, I'm going to ask you a slightly inconvenient question, but it's for the benefit of the audience. So, in a situation like that, obviously, you have investor nominees on your board, and I'm sure they are watching your monthly cash position, your working capital position, and so on. So, did you have some difficult questions to answer? How did you address investor concerns, if there were any concerns at that time? And one of the related questions again is, how do you convince them that you have put in place some measures for bringing about financial discipline into your business, which is I suppose a reasonable concern for them to have.
Yeah, I think, see, when I came in, the questions were, most of the questions were around balance sheet. You
Okay.
know, I think in FY23, our growth was close to 16 to 17%. But balance sheet was, like I said, that, we had a working capital of 1,100 and debt of 800. When we were entering into FY24 and the season went, There were also some questions, like I said, that initial part of FY24 of raising another set of fund. And but because as the available markets started tapering down, that question disappeared. But at that point in time as well, right? We could clearly see that balance sheet is not in a good shape, and this is the question they had thrown at me, that when you come, when you join, first thing you have to, don't focus on growth, don't focus on profit, light in the balance sheet.
Okay.
That's exactly I did for 6 months or 1 year. I think now the question is changed, right? Now they are smart investors. Now they know that we are operating at 30 days of working capital. Now the question is, how do we gain back our variables, our smartwatch glory? How do we regain number two position? We are currently at number four in terms of market share, right? How do we make audio grow even faster in double digit? Because as the consumer devices industry is expected to grow at 15%, how do we make sure that we grow it at 10 to 15%? How do we build the third core? We have first core, which is audio, second core is variables. How do we build the third core, which we are doing now, which is our charging solution, power bank? How do we make it as big as variables, or let's say closer to variables? So these are the questions now being thrown at us, because now they have seen that these are the working capitals which have been sustained over a period of last 2 years, and this is not going to get screwed. We have repaid our 700 crore of working capital loan in last 2 years. So there is hardly any debt. The working capital is at 30 days, so it can't be, uh, I won't say that it can't get better in terms of capital efficiency, but yes, it has reached to a level that now bringing more efficiency in capital allocation will be slightly tough.
So, Rakesh, I'm going to switch now to questions that have, been forwarded to me by Mohini, as well as some questions that are coming up on the chat windows here. I'm going to combine two questions, and both relate to capital allocation, which I think is very pertinent given the theme of this masterclass session. So one question relates to how do you allocate capital across different marketing channels, your marketing budget. The other one relates to how do you allocate working capital across different businesses, and especially now, given what you said about what the board expects from you, that you have a first core, second core, and a third core that's coming up. So clearly at a time when you're tightening the working capital belt, how do you go about allocating money across businesses and within businesses across different marketing budgets?
I think let me take the second question first, which is how do we allocate the working capital, how do we allocate the capital to different businesses. See, uh, our business is not a very capital intensive business, so we did set up one JV, uh, and electronic manufacturing versus FMCG is a less capital intensive business. So high capex is not our larger capital allocation. So it's hardly anything. Uh, where do we spend now in terms of, like I said, there are two big uh, space where we are focusing now and planning to allocate our working capital, let's say capital. One is the new geographies, because let's say if I have to expand my business or our business in GCC of the world, the SAARC nations, there we will have to have inventory in place. There we will have to we will have to extend the collections of the trade receivables to those large customers, uh, and at the same time I might not get the same level of working capital, or let's say payment terms from the suppliers, because those products are going to be very different, and from the different supplier it's going to reach to the international geography. So this is where I think the existing working capital, or let's say need to be allocated, to the new geographies expansion. The second is the new categories. If we have to create a third or fourth core, this is where, again, like I said, that if you want to get into the cables and chargers, or let's say charging solution business, right? We are not going to get easy supplier or easy payment terms from our existing supplier. It's going to be very, very, because this is not where they are going to get large volumes. They are going to get very small volumes, right? Hence, extension of those payment terms will not be there. And very similarly, asking Flipkart, right, to extend the same 5 days, 10 days of credit on this business will not be easy, because they will also not be sure on the sellout of those products. So again, for new products, new categories, new geographies is where we are going to allocate more capital versus our existing business. Uh,
So that's interesting, because actually, in some sense, you've answered a couple of other questions that came up, but let me ask them again, nevertheless. One is, now that you're getting back into the growth cycle, because your investors and board is happy that, or is satisfied at least, that you managed to get capital allocation under control. So you're going to face this trade-off again, chasing growth versus capital efficiency. So sort of act one, scene one again, looks like, for both. I mean, new businesses, growth, and how do you balance capital efficiency versus growth there? And the related question is, what measures would you sort of observe more carefully to make sure that you're, drawing that fine balance between growth and efficiency of capital?
yeah, I think that if you ask me, you know, uh, I had already touched upon this piece when I said that, there will always be a time when we will have to support our existing business, or let's say in terms of off season versus season, right? And we will, of course, chase the growth. But at the same time, when do we support our existing business? If I have, uh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. To me, at least, you're audible.
To me as well. I can hear you, Rakesh.
I mean, for me, the picture is frozen.
Okay, who is mine? Hello?
Yeah, no, I think Rakesh, I see what you're saying. Your video is frozen for us.
Yeah, Rakesh is frozen for us. No, but
Oh, I think, I think Rakesh is having an internet issue, but I think he's just going to join back again. We can just give him one moment. In the meantime, Professor, we could maybe answer a question from the chat.
yeah.
I think a lot of us have been asking about how to implement.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No.
I think I missed the question in between, Professor. Sorry.
No issues. No, I was just going to ask you that now that you're getting back into your growth cycle, are you going to look at any particular measure to ensure that you're maintaining a balance between capital allocation efficiency on the one hand and, chasing growth on the other?
I think, like I said, that, of course, the key growth levers is going to be new geography and new categories and new businesses. I think
Yeah.
this is where we are going to allocate our capital. That's one part of it.
Yeah.
When it comes to existing business, right? the channel expansion is going to be very, very critical,
Okay.
right? Because online can reach, or let's say give us the penetration and distribution to an extent, not to the entire pan India, and let's say tier 2, tier 3 cities where our product, which is really fits for the aspirational Indians, is where we need to expand our offline business. And this is where, again, like I said, that we will have to invest the working capital, giving them extra credit so that they can place the inventory with them and with their retailers, extend the further credit to their retailers, so that this entire cycle for them in terms of working capital works pretty. And that's the plan, that how do we expand our business, and or let's say make sure we cover those tier 2, tier 3, and increase the penetration and improve the penetration. And at the same time, with the new growth, with the new categories, new geographies, but ultimately next couple of years is going to be growth focused, backed by, supported by working capital allocation
Oh,
to both the businesses.
and I guess you have released enough working capital slack for you to be able to support that. Right.
Like I said, that we have enough dry powder,
Yeah.
to reinvest or redeploy into the business.
Okay, there's lot many more questions from what Mohini sent me, but I'm going to ask you one last question because we are nearly 10 more minutes to go before 6:30, and I want to leave a few minutes for you to talk about anything that you would consider important for the audience. I mean, so far you've been responding to my questions, but I think in the interest of fairness, I should leave some open space for you. So the last question that I'm going to ask, which is again an audience question, is could you talk about the unit economics of your business? To the extent you can, without giving away too much proprietary information. I know unit economics is very, very sensitive information, but to the extent that you can, if you could share that, and then you could go on to talk about anything else that you think is important for the audience of this program to know from you.
Like you rightly mentioned, that I don't know how much detail I'll be able to share, but broadly, I can share the thought process, right?
Okay.
The way we look at it. I think we broadly classify our, SQ or key SQ's profitability into four parts, right?
Okay.
And this is where, we have to ensure that the one which is highly profitable, growing pretty fast, has to support the ones which is not growing so fast, right, and not so profitable. That's the supporting role they have to do. And because unit economics for them is not that great, because we are not we are I tell you, our business has largely 3 to 4 price points. One is below 99, the other is 1000 to 2000, then 2000 to 3000, and 3000 plus. We are not there in 3000 plus, where Apple of the world, Samsung of the world is there, right? Because largely in TWS smartwatches. Uh, our 30-40% of the business is below 99,
Okay.
and 50 to 60% is 1 to 3000. That's where we play. And that's where the unit economics are very, very good when it comes to good premium products, high growth, high profitability premium products like Nirvana, all of those products. But where we have, let's say, we can reach to the larger base of population, and which can really help us penetrate our products. In some of the cases we don't make money, and this is where this 60% of the business has to play that role and support that, uh, those products. So let's say I give you an example of my previous organization, sachets, right?
Okay.
Sachets, you know generally, uh, in most of the FMCG, really helped to improve their or to grow their penetration, right? Let's say in case of HUL, the shampoo sachets, really help them grow in terms of penetration. And for that, the unit economics had to be very, very good, right? Uh, when it compares to high BPC product, which is a shampoo bottle of, let's say, 500 ml versus sachet, this bottle will always make better profit.
Okay.
An initial phase of the, any organization, this portfolio always supports the sachets.
Right.
The sachet, which is, roughly, which roughly contributes 60 to 70% penetration of any FMCG or any category, which is hugely penetrated. You know, it's very, very important to get, let's say, the support from those bottle of the world for at least 5 to 10 years. And that's what I've seen and in my previous organization, and make this sachet economics better.
Okay.
And I have seen it. I think earlier this sachets in HUL or let's say in any of the organization used to operate at 5 to 6% of EBITDA. It has increased to 15 to 20%. Better negotiation, you know, the way we use the packaging, all of it, right? Everything has played its role.
That's
But
impressive.
in initial phase of any you know for let's say if you have to go for higher penetration, you will have to play that supporting role to this sachet. And similarly, we also have those product which is in less than 999, and that has to be backed up by the good premium products.
Great. Thanks. So, Rakesh, the floor is all yours in case there's anything in particular that you wanted to
No,
share.
no, I don't know. Whether I was able to answer most of the questions, and whether those
At
were
least to me,
relevant.
you did. For me, it was highly educative. I'm sure it was for the participants too.
No, I think it was great, interaction so far. I thoroughly enjoyed. If you ask me, I don't have any specific question, but I just wanted to understand your journey, Professor. And I don't know, maybe more for my personal interest, that how you have seen this journey of, let's say, being a venture capitalist to, let's say, getting into high, uh, core teaching job.
I'm not sure that's going to be very fascinating to the participants to hear. So I'll take that offline with you and use that as a reason to chat up with you on the phone someday. But on a related note, though, as a venture investor, one was kind of very focused on one's portfolio, and that universe was limited to one's own portfolio and funds. But what I get to see now is a broader canvas, uh, because I get to talk to a lot of people like you. I get to meet companies in NSRCEL. I get to visit other incubation centers where there are lots of equally interesting companies. I serve on these government committees because I'm now, I don't represent any private interest. So I get to hear about the initiatives of the government, both at the Karnataka state government level and the government of India level, about what's going on in entrepreneurship. Uh, so, and I get to see what my students do in terms of projects and companies. And one of the most important lessons for me is that the ecosystem now is very, very, very focused on profitability and capital utilization. And which is why, in my opening remarks, I said this topic is extremely relevant to what I see around us today. I mean, it's just a coincidence. Believe me, I'm not making this up. I just finished grading 14 project reports by my students who had looked at companies that have grown very rapidly. None of them is an Ernicon you mentioned yesterday. They're all companies that are still burning capital. But what's remarkable is that in the last 24 months, last 2 years basically, they've all been kind of trading off capital efficiency for growth. So growth rates have come down from like 50, 60% down to 20%, 30%. And these are all extremely well-known companies, right? All of them are unicorns, very well-known companies, and they are all still tightening their belt. I mean, they could easily get money for the asking. They're not a struggling startup anymore, and investors would be willing to put money on them. But having said that, they are saying, well, yeah, we've grown rapidly enough. Let's now consolidate, right? So I get to see these as a teacher now, which as a fund manager, my learnings would have been limited to just my portfolio. Obviously, I don't get to hear all the interesting stories about what's going on inside the organization, fights between co-founders, so all the interesting stuff that you get to hear about as a nominee on the board, as a fund investor nominee on the board. I don't get to hear those stories. I get to hear them only in offline informal conversations. But I get to see a different picture. So uh, that would be my response to your question.
No,
Yeah,
I think very interesting. I think, but and you're right. I think those fights are still relevant,
yeah,
even and
yeah.
most
Yeah,
likely.
but I think the entire startup ecosystem is going through a very, very interesting phase. And to use a cliche, I think it's a phase where the men are getting separated from the boys. And I think in the next 2 or 3 years, the results will be very obvious. Those who manage to do capital allocation more smartly than the others would obviously have better balance sheets, as you said, to show than those who are less disciplined with their balance sheets. And I think that will determine their long-term sustainability.
I
Mohin,
think one last piece. I think
yeah, yeah, sorry.
uh, my recommendation to the I don't know how many of them have read this book called Unicorns. Uh, I'm saying I would highly recommend that book. That how those four entrepreneurs, three of them didn't raise the money at all, and be more capital efficient. I think that's and on a you know the last piece which I just wanted to share with the audience and Moini and you, Professor, and that both is one of the fastest, or let's say I would say most one of the most capital efficient digital first brand. So we reached to 3,000 crore in first 6 year itself, with
Right,
almost one fourth of the money the others had raised.
right.
I think that's. I thought I'll just share it with you
Right,
and then the
right.
audience.
No, yeah, no, no. I think it's a very, very valuable lesson. And by the way, I must tell you that I've ordered the campus bookstore to get me a copy of the book and also procure a couple of copies for the library, because I think it's extremely important for startups to know how companies have actually grown without raising institutional capital too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Mohini, back to you. I think, I hope we didn't overrun the time too much. Rakesh, it's been wonderful talking to you. I mean, quite honestly, it's a master class for me, for sure. I'm sure it was for the audience too. Yeah. And thank you, Mohini and Samhita, for having me on this program. I benefited a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much, Rakesh. I think you really uncovered some of the deep secrets that make both the way it is, brought in your experience from your past organizations, and really sort of looked at this conversation from not just what early stage startups should do, but what they should aim for. And where that benchmark really stands for, for early stage founders to adopt some of the things that companies like yours have been doing to ensure they're moving in the right direction, using their capital efficiently, and sort of keeping healthy books. I'm sure the room has a lot more conversations, and I do know we have limited time of yours, but thank you so much for bringing this conversation out. Professor rightly emphasized that this conversation is important, and it's extremely further important to dive deep into our own setup and see where can we improve that to increase our runway. Thank you once again, Professor. Thank you, Rakesh. And thank you to everybody on the call. We really, really appreciate you taking out the time in your busy days to listen to some of these conversations. Yeah.
Thank you, Mohini,
Pleasure is ours.
Rakesh. Yeah.
Thanks.